Back to the Rice Report, everyone. I am Eric Rice, of course, your host here. I am joined today by the very well-known and energetic and awesome Emerald Robinson, who is the host of The Absolute Truth. All of you should be watching this and taking a look. She's brave, she's bold, she's saying things other people don't like to hear, but they need to be said. So, Emerald, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be with you, Eric.
Well, what in the heck is going on? I mean, there's certain people who have their finger on the pulse. You're certainly one of them. And we're seeing kind of, I made this analogy the other day. Politics is kind of like the old TV show, and you're probably too young to remember this, but there's a TV show called Facts of Life. And the theme song from Facts of Life was, you take the good, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life.
Yeah.
And that's politics. That's how it works. You make big campaign promises. You're going to get 50% of them maybe in negotiating tables, but we are seeing some stuff here. First 200 days of Trump, there's a lot of great stuff in there. DEI being basically kicked to the can. ESG, all these other things. These are the low man on the totem pole, easy to knock off on the list. The big stuff is going to take a long time, in my opinion, and he's going to be fighting against a slew of people in his own cabinet that don't have the best interest in mind of America, from my opinion. What are you seeing right now? We just had a couple big developments in NIH. What are you seeing in the cabinet right now, the administration?
It's what I saw in the first term, to a certain degree, is that you have President Trump, you have his agenda, and then you have people who were hired at the lower levels, or either those who are careers, right? The steady state, the federal bureaucracy, that is doing everything it can all day, every day to thwart the president's agenda. Now, you know, his comments on mRNA and Operation Warp Speed of the last couple of weeks, and honestly, through the entire term, have been a little bit of a head scratcher, right? So that is coming from the president himself. But he did put Bobby Kennedy in place. He put RFK Jr. in place, who was very critical of the mRNA technology and Big Pharma over at HHS. And we thought had given him full reign and a mandate to do what he promised the voters that he would do. And that included during Bobby's run as president before he joined the coalition, married the MAGA coalitions and endorsed President Trump. Specifically at HHS, you do have influence of those who are still very pro Big Pharma. They're trying to shift the focus to food, right? To dyes, which are concerning.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. We, especially as a mom, very concerned about that, but that's not the big ticket item. It's the mRNA technology and making sure we don't go in that direction any further, and that we undo all the guidances that supported the technology, all the incentives to promote the technology that promoted people getting the jabs, and to educate the public on exactly why they are terrible and state it unequivocally, right? That's what we thought we would get. But there are the influences of those. I'm told that the means, like Hallie Means, is very detrimental to the MAHA objectives on mRNA. That is where you get a lot of the push towards food. I am being told, and I will say explicitly today, that his chief of staff, Bobby's chief of staff, Stephanie Spear, I've now been told by multiple sources, is sabotaging the MAHA agenda. She is not friendly to anyone who is truly MAHA. She tries to keep them out of the administration, so keep them from being hired altogether. I know for several people that I've spoken to myself who were told they were getting hired only for it to stop at Stephanie Spear's desk. Now, one person managed to get through, very MAGA, okay? He is like the embodiment of the coalition. He is the marriage of MAHA and MAGA, and he supported Bobby Kennedy, though he didn't, want him to be president, but he was very supportive of Bobby Kennedy being in the administration at the cabinet level as HHS secretary. His name was Ray Delaney. He got hired, much to my surprise, in all honesty, because we'd already seen the way that it was going in the administration, that those people who were truly MAHA were not the ones getting the jobs initially, right? Mm-hmm. So I was very surprised when he got hired. He was hired as a senior advisor, first in public affairs, to Bobby Kennedy at Bobby Kennedy's own request. This was a direct request from the secretary himself. It's the only reason it went through. Gray was hired. He was within the first week, pushed out to external affairs. but he's the kind of person who's going to thrive wherever you put him. And it was actually a great role for him because he was keeping the MAGA coalition from falling apart by trying to inform people, the big voices in the movement who were very critical as to what was going on the inside, saying, look, the secretary is taking care of this, right? And especially remember when they did approve the Moderna jab for kids from 6 months to 12 years old while Bobby Kennedy was on vacation in Greece. The FDA administrator Marty Makary came out and made that announcement. Well, you don't make an announcement like that when the secretary's on vacation. And it turns out it was behind his back. Okay. And it would have been worse had it not been, according to many sources, for Vinay Prasad, Dr. Vinay Prasad, who was, under Makary at FDA. Apparently the FDA, board was going to vote for blanket approval for these mRNA jabs. And he managed to stop that from happening, only to be fired. He's the one who got fired a couple weeks later, although he kept the fallout. I mean, this would have been very bad for Kennedy, right?
Yes.
Let's just look at the optics of it. Been terrible optics for Kennedy if he came back and all those jabs were given approval. He was forced out. And now you have Gray. Gray has been the only person that I have seen from HHS, and he's only been there about 40 days, who has been trying to reach out to the public, to the big voices in the movement, to the influencers, if you will, a lot of the doctors who were anti-jab, and saying, hey, this is what's going on, on the inside, this is where this is going, and trying to run an effective campaign like you're supposed to do. Sure. That's how they're supposed to work. He got Dr. Stephen Halfhill, who is fantastic, on out here in the media. He was on my show today. He was on Bannage yesterday, and he pulls no punches. He explains that the mRNA technology is very bad. They understand it. And what was important on my show today is that Halfhill revealed that he'd written several papers about it, outlining the evidence and the data to support Secretary Kennedy's decision to pull those 22 BARDA grants, essentially, right? Remember, he pulled money from BARDA that was going to companies, at least 22 projects, to develop more mRNA technology. So Halfhill has written papers to support why this was the right move. Stephanie Spear has not allowed them to be released to the public yet. And Halfhill says the public needs to see these because the public needs to understand what we're doing. Absolutely. So there's some real questions there. Why is she doing this? We're not sure. She was his spokeswoman during the campaign. Now, I will say during the campaign, she didn't want anything to do with me, though I was a great voice, talking about in alignment with a lot of Kennedy's objectives. I, too, was not, I don't agree with him on everything. But in the way of Maha, we found a lot of common grounds. And I've talked to him about that. And they weren't going to let Kennedy on my show. But she's been a lot of people have not been hired. A lot of Kennedy supporters have been isolated and frozen out under her reign as chief of staff. So that's one problematic area we've identified. And there's so many cases of it now. It's like, okay, well, the problem is there, right? That's just one. Now there are, like I said, multiple influences. That's just at HHS, y'all. Yeah. We can go around the town in DC and name similar problems. I mean, look at the CIA. It's not just me saying it now. Very authoritative voices on the intelligence community, like General Mike Flynn, have now confirmed that in some ways, John Brennan, who is up to his eyeballs in the Russiagate scandal, has some operational control over the CIA. Why? Oh. Because all the people he hired, the 99% of the people he hired that owe their allegiance to Brennan, and these people, when they get put in these jobs, they can be very loyal to the person who put them in place. Sure. And that loyalty goes right back to John Brennan. So what we're seeing in the intelligence side is that they're trying to stop intelligence from reaching the president, whether it relates to Russia or if it relates to election fraud. They effectively try to remove information from intelligence product and reports that would make its way to the president, and then action would be taken on. It's a real problem.
It's kind of like first term. This restriction of information, the free flow that should happen to the president of the United States, cabinet members turning on him, isolation of activists. I mean, we call them activists. These are activists for the American people. We have activists who are communist activists in a lot of these agencies. And we're seeing this all over again. Now, Trump had came out with 2 statements yesterday, and I let everything I give everything like 6 months. I think people overreact to statements way too quickly. We're in an information war. I think everyone kind of any smart people realize that right now. So I don't take too much, everything with a grain of salt, which, by the way, the term grain of salt, no one knows where that came from. I try to say this. Every ancient antidote to a poison included 1 grain of salt. So when you're telling somebody, take it with a grain of salt, you're saying, what I'm telling you is poison, but please take this antidote for it right away. And I think you kind of put that in play.
I didn't know that. Thank you for explaining that
almost
to me.
No one does. Yeah, it's such a fascinating piece of history. But here are 2 statements that came out yesterday. Number one, you mentioned it earlier, right? He talked about warp speed, how he's so proud of warp speed. And there's many theories around that the vaccines were switched and all these other things. I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to report news. That was one thing that I think 90% of Americans cringed at immediately. And it was followed up by another statement saying that the Epstein hoax is a Democrat hoax and it's complete BS. I won't use that word, but he did. What in the world is going on here, Emerald? I mean, if this is information war, this is at a very high level because the American people want transparency. We want we're adults. We can take it. We know how bad it is. Just let us see how bad.
Are you asking me if he's playing 5D chess with those statements when we're talking about information warfare?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't. The 5D chess thing that's so 2019 to me. It's just beyond.
It wasn't 5D chess then. It's not 5D chess now.
Yeah, I'm just asking: is he throwing a curveball out there?
That's what would blow my mind. I would talk to very reasonable people, right? Just regular people, but my friends who are very, very bright, very well educated in 2020, and they would say, or 2020 and 2021 particularly, they said, no, Trump's got this under control. And they would say, but did you see what he did here? And I'm like, then you realize when people are not actually living in DC and in these rooms and talking to these people, how you could see it that way. But actually knowing the people they were talking about and having spent time sitting and talking with them, often about whatever particular matter at hand they were spinning as 5D chess, I said, no, you don't.
Yeah, it takes a lot
of
mental
You have to understand
gymnastics.
how this really works.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I'm not alluding to that. I'm just trying to figure out like where is he going with these statements?
So here's what I can tell you about Trump that I have gleaned from his personality, having, lived and breathed Trump for 10 years, right? My kids, when they come out of the womb, they know my voice, my husband's voice, and President Trump's voice. They literally would turn their little like newborn heads kind of to like the TV to his voice. He's an extremely caring person, actually. Yep. Excellent sense of humor, amazing instincts. If he would go with his gut and not listen to the whispers around him or the last person who was in his ear, but go with his instincts, 99% of the time he would actually be right, honestly. Very good instincts. Maybe not as good on judging people as his instincts on policy or,
personnel. Yeah.
Yeah, personnel is not his strong suit. That's clear. Yeah. I think most people know that now. Also, and this is something I think you learn in doing business, right? Particularly as a real estate mogul, is never admit when you're wrong. Never admit that you're wrong. And I think that's a little bit of what is going on with Operation Warp Speed. I think that's also, it's definitely what is he has to, at this point, enough people I know have presented him with the evidence, have told him personal stories. Yeah. John Rich publicly recalled the personal story he shared with President Trump and Lindsey Graham, Lady Lindsey, at dinner one evening about how he knows people. He personally knows people adversely affected by the jabs, and was
We all
very,
do.
John
It's
did not
prevalent.
hold back. But medical professionals have told him. Bobby Kennedy has told him. I also believe that President Trump has his own personal reasons for understanding that vaccines and the way that we've developed them and the lack of rigorous testing and the liability provisions, you know, granted to big pharma are problematic.
Yeah.
I truly believe he understands that. But when faced in 2020 with what he believed would be mass death that he would be blamed for, he did earnestly try to get therapeutics out there.
Yes,
he
did.
very much believed in hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, so much so he let Peter Navarro go and buy up tons of it, right? But he did not have operational control of the administrative state. He didn't understand his executive power, really. He, in a lot of ways, abdicated some of it to Mike Pence, who gave it over to Mark Short, his chief of staff, who is just as swampy as you can get, and who then gave it over to an intelligence professional who still does media interviews with a picture of Lord Fauci behind her, named Olivia Troy, and who's up to her eyeballs in all kinds of scandals, intelligence
obnoxious,
scandals. So President Trump, I think, can't admit that this was a misstep. Now, I think his intentions, I truly believe, a lot of people say, well, I don't know about his intentions. He has to know that it's killing people. I think in 2020, his intentions, you have to understand what was going on at the time. And if you were around all of this and seeing it, you kind of get it. His intentions were good. He really did not want people to die. And he, you know, when they wouldn't let him go with therapeutics, when they blocked that at every turn, when the pharmacies blocked it, when all of the common sense could not prevail, he felt, he went with the vaccines, right? And he was promised that these are great. And you know, he believes, I think, you know, in the experts. He comes from the group that tends to, you know, the age group that tend to believe in them. And his instincts were not to go with, you know, his instincts were to go with therapeutics.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, he didn't get to go with his instincts. And so now he just can't admit he's wrong. That's what I think on the
on Warp Speed.
Based on my personal experience, talking to him over the years, covering him over the years, getting to know his sensibilities, that's what I see. Now that's just my opinion. That's a personal experience with him and what I gleaned from it and why I think he continues to push Operation Warp Speed. On the Epstein front, I'm just like the rest of you.
Yeah.
This is something else. I do think I will note the timing of the announcement that there would be no further investigation. That was on the eve of Netanyahu's visit to DC.
The king of DC returned. Yes.
Yeah, and as you know, all of DC is now nearly in Israel right now.
Yep.
Sitting behind Netanyahu posing.
But we're also hunting down Maduro.
There was a congressional delegation, a Codell that went. Mike Johnson.
Yeah. Oh, Mike Johnson. Does he live in Israel? Is he on like 3 Main Street in Tel Aviv? Right. Yeah, but we have another thing happening right now. Speaking of Israel, is we're now hunting down Maduro for $50 million. One thing I learned last night is Maduro has been very critical of Israel since 2024. So we didn't really care about Maduro here.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, he's critical of Maduro, but of Israel, but there's a lot more to the Maduro.
Oh, he's not a good guy. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
And no, it's not. It's beyond him being a good guy. And we'll get into that in a moment. Let's finish up Epstein, and then I can't wait because I haven't even gotten to really talk about this. And this is really the case I've been on. This is a story I've been on for months. I've been just head down into Venezuela. So I'm looking forward to talking about this. Great. Epstein, I think, here's what I think from knowing that the blackmail operation absolutely existed, and Epstein 100%. Isn't the only one. I believe that so many people are implicated. It does pose a true national security issue because you would have so many people taken out of positions in the United States, and abroad. I had a source close to Netanyahu admit to me that Epstein was their guy. Just a couple weeks ago, while they were trying to talk me off talking about it, because you get these calls. They call and they're like, "Hey, well, yeah, it's not really that, trying to influence you, invite you to something, help you make some money." The conversation also always involves a way to help you make money, while they're telling you that, And so they have moved away in the background as they're talking to reporters. They've moved away from saying he's not our guy, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? And not saying he's not our guy too. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But she said, yeah, he's our guy, but he wasn't Netanyahu's guy. He was Ehud Barak's guy. Not Netanyahu didn't have anything to do with him. It was Ehud Barak, and they're really two different factions. So there's
and you
that.
checked your driver's license. You're like, no, I wasn't. Yep, no, I wasn't born yesterday. It's not on there. Yeah, it's
I
ridiculous.
wish I could just really release some of these calls I get.
And I like you, Mike Baker, but shame on you for saying that Epstein was a Russian and Chinese asset. Like, the guy was set free from incarceration to go to Israel on his first arrest.
Well, but there's an interesting nexus there, and you should I could give you some recommendations for people who there are Russia-Israeli ties that run very deep.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And so you could say, actually, Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, was a triple agent, right?
Yeah.
He was first a Russian agent, then Israeli agent, then, also played with MI6.
Right.
So there is definitely some coordination there. And of course, now with the ties between Russia and China, the growing, budding relationship, then you could kind of say, well, yeah, there's probably was some Chinese influence, but let's not.
But that assumption neglects three obvious pinpoints in this equation here. It neglects the CIA, it neglects Mossad, and it neglects MI6.
The CIA's up to their neck in Epstein too, right?
Yeah, of
and
course,
we're going to, and if you reveal it all, the CIA is implicated, and we have to admit, while our own intelligence community allowed our children to be raped for blackmail.
I mean, we're adults. We've got to be able to, the national security thing, I think, I understand it from an operational perspective. You have people in roles, they're making things function. But I think from the American public, I think we're beyond that, right? Like, replacing intelligence assets is difficult. They have years.
Here's what they always tell us, though. They pretend we're too stupid to understand.
Of course, yeah.
And that we can't handle the truth. But that's just a way for them to maintain their power and their hold.
Of course. Yeah. It's always for our safety. And, it would be damaging for us to learn these things when we all know it. We just want confirmation. I don't think anyone has any doubts that Epstein existed. He blackmailed people by allowing them to rape children, that all intelligence agencies around the world, considering the list that we've already seen on flight logs, was absolutely involved in all these things. I think what we're looking for is confirmation, right? So how does a conspiracy theory go into truth? Confirmation. And verifiable confirmation. And I think Epstein is such an interwoven web. I don't know that we'll ever hear that. I don't know that we'll ever.
But here's kind of how you have to look at it too. And I was having this conversation this morning because me and my team for my show, everybody would actually, that should be the show, because the conversations we have to prep for the show are so good. Okay. They're so colorful, and we all come from amazing, like one guy that works on my show is like a renowned national security guy, and he's been around for all kinds of stuff, and then then a couple other people will call and they'll chime in, and we just have the best time. It's a grand old time. I should probably just open up a call and just call it the briefing, and that's actually a better show, and we can all talk about it. What we were saying though, in this move though, Trump inadvertently is still a flashlight, right? Though he might not be promoting transparency in his case, in this particular issue related to Epstein, saying, oh no, we're not gonna really, who cares? He's drawing more attention to it. Yeah. And more people are like saying, well, why is he saying this? So in the lack of transparency with Trump, we're almost still getting more transparency, right? Because people and then they're looking at the ties to Israel now and saying, well, they're almost undeniable. Yeah. So in its own way, in his own Trump way, inadvertently, he's still a flashlight, even when he's trying not to be.
Yeah. Well, I think the things that are weird are like, when he says this Epstein guy was a creep. He had a 20-plus-year relationship. The guy went to both of his weddings. I mean,
Yeah.
just admit that. No one would have a problem with
There is
that.
definitely something. I don't think, Trump was involved with a young woman. I don't believe
No, I don't
that, but
either.
there is something for sure. He was around Epstein, like you said, 20 plus years. They were on the Palm Beach and Manhattan circles. There is something in there that he believes it would hurt him,
Sure.
and I think because of that, and because of what they're probably telling him about it, who knows? He might not even seen what's in it. They're making out, who's ever briefing him is probably making it out to be way worse than it even is, right? To keep him from releasing the files, because this is what they do. They've done it many times in other situations, telling them, "Oh, this is so bad, Mr. President. You cannot do it. It's going to ruin your presidency. It will end you." And it's probably something, not unconfirmed, relatively minor,
Yeah.
And that is factoring into, because usually he's much better on messaging. And this has been a public relations nightmare. They have just botched it. And even when his staff botches it, Trump usually doesn't, right? And he usually recovers well. If he does make a messaging mistake here or there, he recovers very well.
He's brilliant.
This is atypical for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think his name's probably in there. I don't think it's anything damning, but
Yeah.
how could his name not be in there? I mean, when you have a personal relationship from someone and all their files are pulled, your name is going to be in there.
At the club for a while before Trump threw him out. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and he talked about Epstein stealing people from his spa at Mar-a-Lago. So, like, his name's going to be in there, and it's okay. Like, just let us see what it is. I have no concerns that Donald Trump was doing things to young children at all. I have no concern.
I don't either.
But it is causing ruckus.
But the messaging is making it way worse. But it is getting people to pay attention. Okay, so before we run out of time, I do want to get back to Maduro, because this is the thing. The administration hasn't messaged on this yet either. And I'm about the only reporter that has the story and have actually been paying attention to Maduro. I am never for regime change. We're terrible at it. It always goes back. Okay, so let's just start there. I am not promoting regime change. But let's understand Maduro and Venezuela. Venezuela is actually run by the cartels, particularly Cartel del Sol, Cartel of the Sun, right? They are the ones propping up Maduro. So Maduro is tied to there's not even a difference, right? This is what we don't understand. The cartel runs Venezuela. The cartel is not a Mexican cartel. Don't think Sinaloa cartel, because that is chump change.
Yeah.
The Venezuelan cartels, Cartel del Sol and others, it's a $4 trillion industry. They are essentially their own nation state.
Wow.
They filter money into NGOs. They give money. They have bankers who help them filter money to George Soros. So a lot of the destabilizing efforts that you see, we always wonder how George Soros has endless money. Well, a lot of that comes from the cartels, particularly the Venezuelan cartel. There's lots of evidence. The administration, I can say openly now, has been briefed on all of this. Every aspect of Venezuela they've been briefed on. Tren de Aragua, the money laundering. Tren de Aragua is a paramilitary organization that is headed by the Venezuelan government. And now that Trump's been deporting them, this isn't getting widely reported, they have repurposed them and sent them into Europe. So they're going to do the same thing in Europe with TDA. They engage in money laundering, drug trafficking, human trafficking, child trafficking, and election rigging.
Well-rounded group, very diversified activities in this organization.
Very organized. Like I said, you cannot think about your Mexican cartels. This is a whole different level, and we haven't been paying attention to them.
Did you say 4 trillion?
$4 trillion. We thought it was 2.7. We have recently learned it's probably closer to $4 trillion.
I mean, Mexican cartels are in the billions.
They're also busy paying for lobbyists tied to Trump right now. Okay. They have paid for many Republican figures. They have flipped many assets in our government at the highest levels. The electioneering part of this goes back to the company Smartmatic. the current vice president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, her brother was a key figure in Smartmatic. He has many, many good friends in Florida Republican politics. The machines have been a major part of this. Now, what you're seeing the administration do is lay the groundwork, right? Trump has signed the executive orders designating Cartel del Sol a terrorist organization.
Yes.
Also the same for Tren de Aragua. They're rolling this out slowly. You've seen the Russiagate, right? And you understand that, yes, at the very highest levels of our government, they engaged in a coup and they are corrupt. This is laying the groundwork for what will come in revealing how our elections work. And I have a lot of this. It takes so much time to go into, but I'll come back and talk about it more when I can. But go to my election thread that's pinned to the top of my X at Emerald Robinson, and I have documented this. It's well over 100 tweets now. I give a lot of the source materials. I say when it's, just a source talking to me, but for the most part, there's a lot of open source information there where you can catch up so you can be prepared for when they roll out the real action on Venezuela. They have been majorly influencing our elections. A lot of that is coming out a little bit in the USA versus Smartmatic case that is happening in the Southern District of Florida. That goes to trial on October 1st. Okay, they have indicted 4 executives from this Venezuelan-born, though they based in the United States, Venezuelan-born voting machine company. This involves bribing officials in the Philippines to use their technology, but it also now implicates them doing it in Venezuela, though there's a lot of, they were already in bed there. But this technology, this electronic voting software was put into multiple countries across the globe, okay, by USAID money and through an NGO called SEPS. I'm getting ready to drop a Substack on that with lots of the diagrams so you can understand, because it is a very complex web. It's very intricate and how they've done this. And what you have to understand is that the Smartmatic software has been licensed and purchased by multiple other voting machine companies now, though they say, oh, well, that's theirs. But you bought it and you licensed it. So how did you change it, if at all? But if you go back and you go back through the mergers and the acquisitions, it goes right back to Smartmatic in Venezuela.
In a communist country. A communist country is selling election software. Yeah. Really think about that. Simplicity.
A lot of the problems we're seeing in America, though we wouldn't have thought about it, right? Because we think about it as like a failed state.
Right.
We don't understand how the infrastructure of the cartel is, because we look at Venezuela and we see the people and we think, oh, this is just a failed state. We have had no idea the kind of influence they had on our politics and our elections and the destabilization that we're seeing in our country. And this does not say that the Chinese aren't involved, because it all comes together in Venezuela. There's Iranian influence, there's Chinese influence, and it involves another country as well in Eastern Europe, believe it or not. So it sounds like a thriller. It sounds like, a psychological thriller, or a detective story. But this is where that is why you're seeing action from the Trump administration on Maduro. Now, it may, of course, he's been critical of Israel. He's tied to Iran. They're very close with Iran. So, but that's not really what this action is about, though I'm sure a lot of people will also make that conclusion. There is definitely, in this particular situation, there's more of the story.
Is that why he may have authorized, this morning, I think he authorized military use against cartels and kind of left it blank cartels. Didn't say Mexican cartels. He just said cartels.
Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly right. That's another step towards this.
So he's doing it piece by piece, just putting together the offensive, because we're in defense. America's been in defensive mode for 20 years. But now we're going on the offense. And this is amazing. I'm glad I brought up Maduro to clear that up.
I'm glad you did too.
So yeah, Israel will be a good distraction from the real purpose. Oh, he hates Israel and that's why they want to get him here.
Yeah.
But
in a lot of cases, right, that is kind of what has happened.
Oh,
it's like, oh, well, it's because this, but in this case, there's more to it.
Oh, sure. Look, a year ago, anyone critical of Israel had their account banned in a heartbeat. A couple weeks ago, actually. But yeah, I mean, this is an interesting. Emerald, I know we're running out of time. This is thanks for giving me like a project over the weekend that I have to waste more time on here, because I'm definitely going to be digging through that. When's the Substack coming out?
Hopefully next week. I've just had to put it on hold. So
well, let me know for sure. I'll share it out. I'll get a bunch of other
will.
people to share it out. This is amazing. You know, one thing that I'll say, all this stuff we're talking about is always, we hear the term doomer, conspiracy theorist. We're just trying to assess reality. That's what reality is.
That's it.
And the beautiful part of this,
we can't win if we don't know what we're facing.
Sun Tzu, Art of War, know thy enemy more than you know, better than you know yourself. I think it's paramount. But the good news is, and I know you're a person of faith as well, I'm seeing more people turn to God. You know, we've leaned on DC all our lives, or leaned on our job or our kids. And this movement of faith throughout the country is one of the more beautiful things. We have baptism weekend at our church this weekend. It's my favorite time of the month. And I've seen, you know, almost 1,000 people in a little church over the age of 40 get baptized. I've never even thought that was a thing. I'm one of them.
I'll tell you, I heard so many instances in 2020, particularly when they took away our rights and, you know, tried to just shut us down in our homes and isolate us. I had so many friends that I hadn't talked to in like a while, you know, people I went to college with. I remember one lady in particular, she reached out to me. She said, you know, you're really the only Christian I ever knew. And she's like, I don't know what's going on, but it's like a spontaneous conversion. It wasn't that somebody witnessed to her. It was just like during that moment of everything going on, she said, I started feeling like I needed to pray. And then I got a Bible. And she's like, I don't even understand how to read it, really. So I'm just asking you if you can maybe help me. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to find a good church. And right now that's a little hard because a lot of them are complying with COVID. But let's find you a good church. And I have now heard so many stories like that. It was like spontaneous revival conversions. It was amazing.
Well, the darkness is trying to overwhelm humanity, and we are the light. And that's just the way it's always going to be. It's never going to change. God has our back. You know, we're going to see crazy things. I think the next 4 years are going to be filled with absolutely upside down world type stuff, because we've been living in the upside down world. So we're now actually getting our feet on reality. And part of that is, and I'll say this over and over again, relation is greater than religion.
Yes.
Talk to God. You don't need a church. Most of the churches are corrupt to begin with. I mean, that's just a simple fact. Just talk to God. And I think we're seeing so many people do that. And it's because of the reporting people like you do, getting out there, digging in the weeds, uncovering stuff people don't want to hear. You know, 4 years ago, this was a much harder thing, was trying to get people to understand this is what's happening. Now people are starving for it.
Yeah, it's such a different lay of the land now. It's almost unbelievable when it's no longer taboo to say things that got me kicked off Twitter and fired and, you know, written about in every outlet across the country.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I'm a crazy person.
You were not crazy. You were actually brave, and we appreciate you doing exactly what you did.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to talk with you.
How can people get a hold of you? Where can they follow you and see your work?
Yeah, of course, I mentioned my ex, where I'm doing the long thread, but also I've done a lot of this work in detailed analysis over the years on my Substack at emerald.tv. So you can go back and, you know, search on the archive for election, Venezuela, you know, stolen election, Bill Barr. You'll be interested to learn the things you read about Bill Barr.
I'm trying to forget about Bill Barr.
You can go back and get caught up on my emerald.tv Substack.
Awesome. Everyone should go there and check it out. And Emerald, thank you so much for coming on. Look forward to having you on here again and being on your show. That was a lot of fun as well. So we'll get people understanding Bitcoin and what this new movement is on there. Thank you so much. This is so enlightening for people. I am excited right now to have a project over the weekend. My wife might not be excited about that project, but I'm going to be digging in your Substack and seeing what's going on. So thank you so much.
Tell your wife I'm sorry. Bye.
God bless you. God bless America. We'll see you next time.
Amen.